The great alien hall was filled with sound. Laughter, whispers, and cruel jokes echoed between the tall silver pillars. Thousands of eyes from dozens of alien species focused on a single figure, standing in the center. That figure was a human. His name was Daniel. Daniel stood straight even though his heart was heavy. He had been brought here as a curiosity, a joke for the alien elite. The Galactic Council had gathered to show their culture, their music, their arts. Among them stood the proud alien masters, beings who had ruled the stars for thousands of years. And among them also stood a lone human, mocked as nothing more than a primitive animal. One alien, tall and covered in blue scales, sneered at him. "So this is the human?" the alien said in a voice that carried across the hall. "The species that still bangs metal strings and blows through wooden pipes? Tell us, little Earthman, can you even hear true music?" The crowd erupted with cruel laughter. Some slapped their clawed hands against the stone floor. Others flicked their tails or beat their wings in amusement. Daniel stayed calm. He had heard such words before. Humans were often seen as weak in the eyes of the galaxy. They had no great fleets compared to the mighty empires. They had no ancient wisdom compared to species that lived for thousands of years. All they had was their short lives, their fragile bodies, and their emotions. Another alien stepped forward. This one was thin, with 4 glowing eyes and a voice that dripped with mockery. "Play for us, human. Play the Xenotone. Or are you afraid? Do you even know what true sound feels like? Or are humans only fit to sing around campfires?" The name of the instrument spread quickly through the crowd, the Xenotone. It was not an ordinary instrument. It was said to be alive, grown from the crystal core of a dead star. Only the greatest alien musicians could play it, and even they sometimes failed. The Xenotone was not only music, it touched the mind, the heart, even the soul. No human had ever dared to try, the alien shouted with cruel joy. "Yes, let the human try. Let us see him fall." Daniel's eyes moved slowly to the strange instrument placed before him. It stood on a platform of white stone. Its strings were not strings, but lines of glowing light. Its body was not wood, but something that shimmered like liquid crystal. It pulsed softly as if it were breathing. He felt his stomach twist. He had played many instruments on Earth. He had played the piano, the violin, even the guitar when he was young. But this was different. This was something that looked alive, something that could reach into his very being. Yet Daniel did not step back. He remembered his childhood, the nights when he had nothing but his music to keep him alive. He remembered his mother's voice telling him that music was not about skill, it was about heart. He remembered the pain of losing her, and how only music gave him strength again. And so, while the aliens laughed and mocked, Daniel took one step forward. His boots echoed on the stone floor. The hall grew quieter. Another step. Then another. Some aliens hissed in amusement. Others whispered in shock. Could the human truly be foolish enough to accept the challenge? Daniel stopped in front of the Xenotone. The instrument glowed faintly, its lines of light shifting as if it were aware of him. He lifted his hand but did not touch it yet. His reflection shone faintly on its crystal body. For a moment he saw his own tired face, but behind it he thought he saw something else, something waiting. The alien who had first mocked him barked with laughter. "Careful, little man. The Xenotone eats weak minds. Touch it and it will break you." But Daniel did not answer. He let the voices fade into the background. His focus was on the instrument. His chest rose and fell slowly. His hands did not shake. The crowd began to grow restless. Some shouted at him to play already. Others demanded the show end. But the council's leader, a being with skin like flowing silver, raised one hand. The hall fell silent. "Let the human try," the leader said, voice deep and cold. "If he fails, we will laugh. If he succeeds, we will see." Daniel placed his hand gently on the Xenotone. And then, something unexpected happened. The Xenotone glowed brighter. Not faintly, not softly, but strong, like the first light of dawn. A deep hum filled the hall, shaking the very air. The crowd gasped in shock. The Xenotone had never reacted this way to any outsider. Daniel closed his eyes. He felt warmth spread through his hand, into his arm, and then into his chest. The instrument was alive, yes, but it did not reject him. Instead, it welcomed him. It listened to his heart. The aliens stared in stunned silence. The laughter was gone. The mockery had turned to shock, and Daniel, the human they had mocked as a primitive animal, prepared to play. The Xenotone pulsed with light, glowing brighter under Daniel's touch. The grand alien hall, once filled with laughter, now fell into uneasy silence. Every eye, round, slit, compound, or glowing, was locked on the human who dared to touch their sacred instrument. No one had expected this. The Xenotone never welcomed strangers. For centuries, only chosen alien musicians had been allowed to perform on it. To many species, the Xenotone was not just an instrument. It was a sacred bridge between the stars and the soul. It responded only to truth, and yet, this human stood before it, his hand resting on its glowing surface, and it shone like never before. An alien priest, robed in white and covered in spiraling tattoos, stepped forward. His voice trembled. Impossible. The Xenotone only glows when it finds a spirit worth listening to. No human should... He stopped, unable to believe his own words. The crowd whispered in confusion. Some shouted that it was a trick. Others argued that the instrument itself had chosen the human. The sound of wings, tails, and claws scraped against the floor as the aliens grew restless. But Daniel did not move. He stood still, eyes closed, hand firm on the living crystal. In his mind, he could hear something faint. Not sound exactly, but a rhythm. A heartbeat, soft and ancient. It was like the stars themselves were breathing. The Xenotone was alive. Daniel opened his eyes and studied it closely. The body shimmered like frozen water, yet it pulsed with heat. The glowing strings of light shifted gently, as if waiting for him to pluck them. He thought of his piano back on Earth, the black and white keys his fingers once knew so well. He thought of the nights when he would play alone in the dark, music carrying his sorrows when no one else could. Play, human, hissed a reptilian alien with fangs as long as daggers. Show us your foolishness. The Xenotone will destroy you. Another, with a voice like breaking glass, snapped. This is an insult to the council. Stop this now. But the leader of the council, the silver-skinned being on the throne, raised his hand once more. His voice was calm but heavy with authority. No, we will see where this leads. The Xenotone does not glow without reason. Let him play. The hall fell quiet again. All that remained was the faint hum of the Xenotone. Daniel stepped closer, his fingers hovering above the strings of light. For a moment, doubt touched him. What if they were right? What if this instrument destroyed him from within? But then he remembered Earth. He remembered standing on the edge of a ruined city, music the only thing keeping his heart alive. He remembered his mother's last words. Music is truth, Daniel. Never be afraid to share it. His hand lowered. His finger touched the first string of light. The sound that came was unlike anything he had ever known. It was not heard with ears but felt deep inside the chest. It rang through his bones, through his blood, through his soul. The hall shook faintly, not with power but with meaning. Gasps filled the air. Some aliens clutched their heads. Others closed their eyes as strange emotions rose within them, emotions they had long buried or forgotten. Daniel pulled his hand back, breathing heavily. Just one note had carried so much weight. The Xenotone truly was alive, but he was not done. He placed both hands over the glowing strings and began to play slowly. The first notes were awkward, clumsy, like a child learning for the first time. Some alien sneered, ready to laugh again, but then the sounds began to form a pattern. The Xenotone's glow matched his rhythm. With each touch, the light grew stronger, weaving colors through the air. Blue and gold danced like rivers in the hall. The sound was not just sound anymore, it became pictures, memories, feelings. One alien warrior dropped his weapon as tears filled his eyes. He saw through the music the memory of his first victory long ago. Another alien mother gasped as the sound filled her with the love she had once felt when her child was born. Daniel was lost in it too. He wasn't just playing, he was speaking. His music carried his own story. He remembered walking through empty streets on Earth after war had taken everything from him. He remembered the loneliness, the silence, and how music had been his only companion. The aliens felt his loneliness. They felt his pain, and for the first time they felt human sorrow. But it was not only sadness. The Xenotone carried more. When Daniel's fingers moved faster, the sound shifted. It brought memories of Earth's oceans, vast and endless. It showed green forests, wild and alive. It showed laughter, firelight, friendship. Some aliens trembled. Others began to weep. Even the council members shifted uncomfortably, trying to hide the emotions breaking into their hearts. But not all were moved. one of the judges. A dark-armored alien with burning red eyes stood and roared, "Enough! This is dangerous. Human emotion is chaos. It is poison. Stop him before the Xenotone itself is destroyed." The crowd erupted into argument. Some demanded Daniel stop. Others cried for him to continue. The hall became a storm of voices, fear and awe mixing together, but Daniel did not hear them. His eyes were closed, his hands steady. The Xenotone had chosen him, and he had chosen to play. The notes rose higher, brighter, reaching into the hearts of all who listened, and for the first time in galactic history, the aliens realized that humanity's weakness might also be its greatest strength. The hall trembled with silence. The glow of the Xenotone bathed Daniel in a soft, shifting light. Every alien eye watched, waiting for him to fail. They had seen him touch the sacred instrument. They had felt the strange emotions creeping into their hearts. Yet most believed it could not last. Surely the human would falter. Daniel did not falter. His fingers hovered above the glowing strings. He breathed deeply, steadying himself. For a brief second, he saw his reflection again on the crystal body of the Xenotone. He looked small, fragile, even foolish compared to the tall, proud aliens surrounding him. But in his eyes burned something they could not understand: determination. He plucked a string. The sound was sharp and pure. It shot through the hall like lightning, making the walls hum. A ripple of color followed, shades of silver and blue painting the air. Many flinched, expecting the sound to shatter into nothing. Instead, it lingered warm and alive. The aliens whispered nervously, "How is he doing this? He should not even know the notes." Daniel plucked another string. Then another. At first it was clumsy. The rhythm was uneven. A few aliens chuckled, whispering insults under their breath. But Daniel did not care. His hands kept moving, learning with every touch. Slowly, the scattered notes began to form a melody. The Xenotone's glow deepened, threads of light weaving in the air like rivers across the night sky. The sound changed from awkward to beautiful. It filled the hall, sinking deep into the hearts of all who listened. The laughter stopped. The first true notes of human music on the Xenotone carried something alien ears had never heard before: raw, unguarded feeling. The melody was simple, almost too simple for a hall filled with masters of sound. But that simplicity cut deeper than the most complex alien symphonies. Daniel's hands grew steadier. He was no longer just trying to play. He was remembering. Each note carried a memory. He remembered his mother humming softly while she cooked. He remembered sitting by the window as rain fell outside, tapping gentle rhythms with his fingers. He remembered the first time he touched a piano, the keys cold and heavy beneath his hands, yet opening a world inside him. The Xenotone carried those memories into sound. The aliens felt them too. A hardened warrior with scars across his face suddenly felt the warmth of a childhood he had long buried. A scholar with glowing eyes shivered as she felt the sting of human loss. Even the youngest alien child in the hall felt her heart beat faster, though she did not know why. The hall was no longer a place of mockery. It was a place of listening. Daniel closed his eyes, letting the music guide him. He did not try to be perfect. He did not try to impress. He simply played what was in his heart. The Xenotone responded, glowing brighter, vibrating with each touch as though it too longed to speak. The melody shifted. It grew heavy, carrying pain. The notes told of Earth's wars, of loss, of nights when the world was dark and silent. The aliens leaned forward, their breaths held. They could feel the sorrow of a small world fighting to survive in a vast, cold galaxy. Some began to weep silently, though they did not understand why. Then, just as the sorrow grew unbearable, Daniel's hands moved faster. The sound brightened. New colors bloomed in the air, green, gold, and soft red. The melody carried laughter, hope, the warmth of fire, and the joy of love. The aliens gasped. The music was not only sorrow. It was strength. It was defiance. It was survival. Daniel played as if the instrument were an extension of his soul. The Xenotone seemed to recognize him more with each note. Its glow expanded, rising like a second sun within the hall. The light touched the high pillars, the council seats, and every face in the crowd. But not all were moved. One of the strict judges, an alien with skin like black iron, slammed his clawed hand against the stone. His voice thundered, "Stop! This is dangerous. The humans' chaos will destroy us." The hall erupted into shouting. Some aliens screamed that it was madness, others begged for the music to continue. The sound of wings flapping, claws scraping, and tails whipping against the floor created a storm of noise. Yet even in the storm, Daniel played on. His music cut through the chaos. Note by note, the hall fell silent again, not by force but by feeling. The aliens could not help but listen. The judge's face twisted with fury, but even he could not block the music. His hands shook as something unwanted filled his chest, something he had never allowed himself to feel. A single tear threatened to fall from his burning eyes. Daniel's melody reached its height. It was not the song of a master. It was not polished or perfect. But it was true. Every alien felt it. The simple truth of what it meant to be human. The last note hung in the air like a star refusing to fade. The Xenotone glowed, then pulsed as though it had given a piece of itself to the sound. And then, silence. Daniel lowered his hands. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He looked around at the hall. Thousands of eyes stared at him, not with mockery, not with laughter, but with something else. Something dangerous. For the first time, the aliens had listened, truly listened, and deep inside, many of them were afraid. The last note of the Xenotone still hung in the air like a ghost that refused to vanish. The alien hall was silent, yet it was not an empty silence. It was heavy, filled with things unspoken. The aliens shifted uneasily, their proud faces shaken, their voices stolen by something they did not understand. Daniel lowered his hands slowly. Sweat glistened on his brow, his chest rising and falling as if he had carried a mountain on his shoulders. The Xenotone pulsed softly beneath his fingers, still glowing, still alive. It had not broken him. It had not destroyed him. Instead, it had listened. For a brief moment, no one moved. Then a voice shattered the stillness. "Stop this at once." A towering alien judge rose, his armor black as obsidian, his eyes burning red. His claws scratched the stone floor as he pointed at Daniel. Human emotion is poison. It twists, it corrupts. This chaos cannot be allowed. The hall erupted. Some shouted in agreement, demanding the human be removed, but many more cried out in protest, their voices trembling with something they had never felt before. One alien warrior, his scarred face wet with tears, roared, "Let him continue. The music speaks of truth. I have fought 100 battles, but I never understood what I fought for until now." A scholar with glowing eyes whispered in awe, "This human carries sorrow and joy in the same breath. How can such fragile creatures hold so much?" The leader of the council raised his silver hand for silence, but the hall was restless. Even he could not hide the way his chest rose sharply, the way his gaze lingered on the human with unease. Daniel did not speak. He did not argue. His answer came not in words, but in sound. He placed his hands once more on the Xenotone. The first note struck like a whisper, then another. The melody returned, softer this time, yet deeper. It spread across the hall like flowing water, touching every corner. The air shimmered with colors, gentle blues, warm golds, faint greens that swirled around the listeners. And with each note, the aliens felt something new. The proud warriors felt sorrow for the enemies they had slain. The cold scholars felt longing for moments they had never lived. The council members who had ruled without mercy felt fear, not of the human, but of the truth inside themselves. Daniel's music carried stories that needed no words. The rise and fall of the notes became the rise and fall of lives. The aliens saw visions, Earth's oceans crashing against cliffs, a child laughing in the rain, a mother holding her baby for the first time, a soldier dying in the mud with a song on his lips. The music grew stronger. It carried pain, yes, but also hope. For every tear there was also a smile. For every sorrow there was also love. And the aliens, for the first time in their long, proud lives, realized what they had been missing. Some wept openly. Others clenched their fists, trying to hold back the flood inside them. A few simply closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them like a tide. The black-armored judge roared again, his voice shaking the hall. "This is manipulation. He is twisting our minds. End this before he destroys us all." But his words were weak now. The music drowned them out. Daniel's hands moved faster. His eyes were closed, but his face showed everything. Grief, joy, love, despair. He was not just playing for them. He was playing for himself, for Earth, for his mother, for every human who had ever felt alone. The Xenotone answered his heart. Its glow spread across the hall until the very walls seemed alive. The stone pillars shook with the force of feeling. Light poured down like a storm of stars. Aliens fell to their knees, overcome. Some cried like children, their proud voices broken. Others simply bowed their heads, unable to resist the truth pouring from the instrument. And in that moment, they understood something terrible and beautiful. Human emotion was not weakness. It was power. The power to break through walls of pride. The power to shatter centuries of silence. The power to make the strongest warriors cry and the coldest rulers tremble. Daniel played a final note. Gentle, fragile, like a candle's last flame. The Xenotone's glow softened, wrapping the hall in a tender embrace. Silence returned. No one laughed now. No one mocked. The hall was filled with tears, with shivering breaths, with eyes wide in disbelief. The council leader finally stood. His silver skin shimmered under the fading glow. He spoke slowly, as though every word weighed heavily. Never, in all our history, has the Xenotone sung like this. He turned his gaze to Daniel. You are a human, a species we thought weak, yet you have shaken the hearts of the galaxy with nothing but sound. His voice cracked for a single moment, though he quickly masked it. The black-armored judge snarled. This cannot be allowed. If humans can do this, they will change everything. They will spread their chaos across the stars. But the crowd no longer stood with him. They had been moved. Their hearts, once locked in iron, had been opened. Daniel stepped back from the Xenotone, his hands trembling, his breath shallow. He whispered softly, though no one could hear. This is who we are. And though he said it only for himself, the entire hall felt it. The power of human emotion had been unleashed, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The glow of the Xenotone spread through the alien hall like dawn breaking over a silent battlefield. Its light climbed the high pillars, brushed across the grand banners, and touched the faces of every alien in the chamber. For a long moment, no one moved. They were still trapped in the music's spell, their hearts raw, their pride stripped away. Daniel stood in the center, breathing hard. His hands trembled, but his eyes were steady. He had given them his sorrow, his hope, his humanity, and they had felt it. Even those who despised him could not deny it now, but the silence was fragile. Enough, roared the black-armored judge, his voice cracking with fury. He rose, his clawed hand striking the floor with a sound like thunder. This is corruption. He twists our minds. If he continues, he will destroy the Xenotone itself. The crowd stirred. Some shouted in anger at the judge. Others whispered in fear. The tension in the hall was like a storm waiting to break. Daniel's gaze moved across the crowd. He saw warriors with tears still on their faces. He saw scholars clutching their robes, struggling to understand feelings they had long forgotten. He saw leaders trembling, their proud masks broken, and he knew he could not stop now. He placed his hands once more on the glowing strings. The Xenotone pulsed as if it had been waiting for him. The first notes rang out, soft but steady. They carried across the hall, pulling the voices of the crowd into silence. The melody rose slowly like a flame fed by air, until the hall was filled again with light and sound. But this time it was different. The music no longer told only of sorrow and hope. It broke the walls inside the aliens' minds. It reached deeper, tearing open memories they had locked away. The warrior who once wept now saw not only his victories but the faces of enemies he had slain, their eyes full of fear. He dropped to his knees, shaking. The scholar who once trembled now felt the weight of centuries of pride, the loneliness of a mind that had chosen knowledge over love. She covered her face with her hands. Even the children in the hall, their small eyes wide, felt the overwhelming tide of human emotion. Some cried, some laughed, all without knowing why. The Xenotone became more than an instrument. It became a mirror. It showed the galaxy what it had forgotten, what it had denied for centuries. Visions filled the hall. Oceans roared across the walls. Vast forests rose from the floor. Skies filled with stars stretched across the ceiling. And in the heart of it all was Earth, small, fragile, beautiful. The aliens gasped. Many had never seen the human homeworld. Now they not only saw it, they felt it. They felt its loneliness in the vast galaxy. They felt its courage, its defiance, its hunger to survive. The music broke barriers that had stood for ages. Pride, fear, hate, none could resist. The strongest leaders wept openly. The cruelest warriors bowed their heads. And for the first time, the galaxy understood that humanity was not weak. Humanity was different, but not everyone accepted it. The black-armored judge rose again, fury twisting his face. "This is blasphemy," he thundered. The Xenotone was never meant for such chaos. "He will tear apart the very foundation of our hall." And as if to prove his words, the Xenotone's glow grew brighter, too bright. The walls shook. The floor trembled. Cracks spread across the white stone. The crowd screamed in panic. Some fled toward the exits. Others covered their heads. The entire hall threatened to collapse under the storm of sound and light, but Daniel stood firm. His fingers flew across the glowing strings, faster, harder, pouring everything he had left into the music. He could feel the Xenotone straining, burning, but he would not stop. He had come too far. The melody rose into a storm. Notes struck like thunder. Light blazed like lightning. The air itself shook, and then something changed. The chaos turned to harmony. The storm became a song of unity. The shaking slowed. The cracks in the walls stopped spreading. The light softened, wrapping the hall like an embrace. The aliens froze. Their fear melted into awe. The Xenotone was not breaking, it was transforming. It had never glowed so brightly, never sung so powerfully. The silver-skinned council leader, his voice trembling, whispered, "This is not destruction. This is awakening." Daniel closed his eyes. He was no longer just a man playing an alien instrument. He was a bridge between worlds. His music carried humanity's soul, and the Xenotone carried it into the hearts of every being in the hall. When the final note came, it was not loud. It was soft, gentle like the closing of a book, but it rang in the hearts of all who listened. Silence followed. True silence. Not of mockery, not of fear, but of reverence. The hall, once filled with proud rulers and mocking voices, now bowed its head before a human. Daniel lifted his hands from the Xenotone, his body trembling, his breath shallow. He whispered, though none could hear, "Barriers are only walls waiting to be broken." And the galaxy knew he had broken theirs. The hall still glowed faintly from the last echoes of music. Aliens sat stunned, their hearts raw and unguarded. They had come to laugh at a human, but now they were silent witnesses to something they could not explain. Daniel stood in the center, exhausted. His hands trembled, his chest heaved with every breath. The Xenotone pulsed softly under his touch, alive, waiting. He could stop now. He had already shown them what humanity was. He had already broken their pride. But deep inside, Daniel knew it was not enough. The Xenotone was not finished. And neither was he. He raised his head and looked around. Thousands of alien faces stared back. Some wept, some trembled, some simply watched with hollow eyes. But in each of them he saw the same thing, a crack, a break in their walls. They were open, vulnerable, ready. If he ended here, their hearts might close again. The council could dismiss this as a strange accident, a moment of weakness. Humanity would be forgotten, but if he gave them everything, they would never forget. Daniel placed his hands firmly on the glowing strings. The Xenotone flared bright as if it too understood. The crowd gasped, and then he began to play. The sound that came was unlike anything before. It was not clumsy, not hesitant. It was strong, fierce. A storm of notes burst into the hall, rising like a tide that could not be stopped. The Xenotone answered him with light so bright it lit the entire chamber like a new sun. The walls shook again, but this time no one ran. They were frozen, trapped in the song. Daniel poured everything into the music. His pain, his love, his fear, his courage, his entire soul. Each note was a piece of him. The melody soared high, then plunged low, carrying the crowd with it. It told of humanity's endless struggle, its wars, its failures, its broken dreams. But it also told of hope, the laughter of children, the warmth of friendship, the strength of love that survived even death. Aliens clutched their chests as the emotions tore through them. Some cried openly, shaking. Others collapsed to their knees, unable to bear the weight of the feelings inside them. The coldest leaders, who had never wept in centuries, felt tears streaming down their faces. The Xenotone transformed the hall. Visions filled the air. The aliens saw Earth again, not just its beauty, but its pain. They saw cities burning in war, but they also saw humans rebuilding, helping one another, never giving up. They saw endless skies filled with stars and one small species daring to reach for them. The sound was overwhelming. It was too much, too big, too real. The hall itself seemed alive. The air shook. The pillars vibrated. The floor trembled as if the galaxy itself were listening. The black-armored judge rose once more, his face twisted in rage. He screamed over the music, "He will destroy us all. The Xenotone cannot contain this chaos. Stop him before it consumes the hall." But no one moved. No one dared. Their hearts were too bound by the music. The Xenotone glowed brighter, brighter still, until the entire hall was bathed in pure white light. Daniel's hands blurred as he played faster, harder, every note cutting through flesh and soul alike. It was no longer just music. It was truth, and truth cannot be stopped. The storm of sound reached its peak. The hall roared with thunder. The air split with fire. The ground shook as if mountains were moving. The crowd cried out, their voices lost in the flood. And then, just as it seemed the hall would shatter, Daniel shifted. The music softened. The storm calmed. The fire cooled. The final movement began. It was slow, gentle, tender, like a mother's lullaby, like a child's first laugh, like the last goodbye whispered in the dark. The notes touched each heart not with force but with love. The aliens wept freely now. They did not fight it. They did not resist. They let themselves feel. Daniel's vision blurred with tears, but his hands did not stop. He played as though this was the last thing he would ever do. Perhaps it was. Perhaps the Xenotone would take him when he was done. But it did not matter. This was his gift, his truth. The last note rose, soft as breath, fragile as a candle's flame. It lingered in the air, glowing faintly, refusing to fade. Daniel lowered his hands. His body shook. His knees almost gave out. But he stayed standing. The hall was silent. Thousands of aliens sat frozen, tears on their faces, their pride shattered, their souls open. They had heard him, truly heard him, and they knew they would never be the same. The Xenotone, as if exhausted too, dimmed slowly. Its glow faded until it was silent once more. But in the hearts of every being in that hall, the music still played. Daniel bowed his head. In a voice too soft for most to hear, he whispered, "For Earth, for humanity." And though the words were quiet, the entire galaxy felt them. The final movement was done and history had been changed. The final note faded into silence, but the silence itself felt alive. It was not empty. It was filled with the echo of what had just been played. The Xenotone stood dim and still, its light slowly fading, like a great fire that had burned itself out. And in the hall, not a single alien moved. Thousands sat frozen, their eyes wide, their bodies trembling. Some wept openly, tears running down faces that had not known sorrow in centuries. Others clutched their chests as though their hearts had been torn open and stitched back together. The proud, the powerful, the cruel, every one of them had been broken by a human song. Daniel lowered his hands and stepped back from the Xenotone. His body shook with exhaustion. His shirt clung to him with sweat, his legs heavy as stone. But his eyes were steady. He had done it. He had given them everything, and now he waited. Would they punish him, or would they listen? The first sound came not from a leader, not from a warrior, but from a child. A small alien girl, her skin glowing faintly blue, let out a soft sob. She wiped her eyes and whispered in a trembling voice. It was beautiful. The hall stirred. The words were simple, yet they carried weight heavier than any command. One by one, voices rose. A warrior with scars across his chest dropped to one knee. I mocked him. I mocked humans. But now I see. They are not weak, they are strong in ways we never understood. A scholar, her glowing eyes wet with tears, added, "We study the stars, but we forgot to study ourselves." This human reminded us who we are. The silver-skinned council leader stood slowly. His body glimmered faintly in the fading light. His voice was calm, but it carried across the hall with unshakable power. "Never," he said, "has the Xenotone sung like this. Never have we heard truth so raw, so real. This human has broken us, and in doing so has shown us something greater." He looked down at Daniel, his expression unreadable. "Humanity, we thought you fragile. We thought you unworthy. But tonight you have made us weep. Tonight you have made us remember. You have proven that strength does not lie only in weapons or in long lives or in great empires. Strength also lies in the heart, in the soul, in the courage to feel." The hall was silent again. Every alien waited for the verdict. Then the leader bowed his head, a gesture no one had ever seen him give before. For the first time I bow to a human. Gasps filled the hall. Many council members shifted uncomfortably, some with pride wounded, others with relief. The black-armored judge snarled, his burning eyes furious. "This is madness," he thundered. "Do you not see what he has done? He has infected us with chaos. If humans spread this across the galaxy, nothing will remain the same. They must be contained, silenced, erased." "Enough," the leader cut him off sharply. His silver voice was steel. "The Xenotone chooses truth. Tonight it chose the human. Deny him and you deny the instrument itself. Deny him and you deny truth." The judge's words died in his throat. His fury was not gone, but even he could not speak against the will of the instrument. Daniel stood still, listening. He said nothing. He did not need to. His music had already spoken. The crowd shifted again. Some bowed their heads toward him. Others reached out their hands in strange alien gestures of respect. Even those who hated him could not look him in the eye without trembling. For the first time, the galaxy looked at a human not with mockery, but with awe. Daniel finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but in the silence it carried. "I am only one man, only one voice. But this is who we are. This is humanity. We hurt, we love. We fall, we rise. We cry and we laugh. And in every note, in every sound, we are alive." The hall shivered with his words. He turned and stepped away from the Xenotone. The instrument, dim now, seemed to rest like a living creature that had given its last gift. The glow on its strings was faint, but not gone. It pulsed once as if saying goodbye. Daniel placed his hand on it one last time. "Thank you," he whispered, and then he walked away. The crowd parted for him in silence. No one dared to block his path. No one dared to mock him again. Even those who despised what he had shown them stepped aside, unable to look directly at him. As he reached the doors of the great hall, he paused. He did not look back. He did not need to. Behind him, an entire galaxy sat in silence, forever changed. The silver-skinned leader's voice echoed through the hall, solemn and heavy. "Tonight, we learned the power of a single human heart. Tonight we saw that weakness can be strength and sorrow can be beauty. Let it be remembered, the day a human played the Xenotone and left us in tears." The doors closed behind Daniel, and the galaxy would never forget.